how much I love Journey Spice. Journey Spice, non-GMO, no salt, no sugar, just all sorts of goodness and smart, environmentally friendly packaging. Pinch the top, take it off. Food tastes better. Comes in singles, 2-packs, and 4-packs. It's Journey Spice. Find them at Amazon.com. Time for Denver's best sports talk with the Altitude Daily.
This is the Altitude Daily Podcast. Everything you can't miss from today on Altitude Sports Radio. Mosher, Lombardi, and Kane.
The Chiefs, if Travis Kelce is on the latter stages of his career and he's not the same guy, so they have Rashee Rice. Rashee Rice is good. Xavier Worthy, everybody talks about him. He didn't do anything. He's a fast guy who's still trying to prove stuff. And their running game was awful last year.
Then how in the hell did they win 15 games and get to the Super Bowl?
Because their defense was crazy good, and they had Patrick Mahomes to close games out. I mean, that's how they did it.
That's a great formula. But guess what? Isn't that pretty much how the Broncos of 2015 got to the Super Bowl?
Well, yes, that's what I'm saying. But that's all I'm getting at is the Broncos are different because their quarterback left the year after that, and then a whole bunch of changes happened.
The bottom line is they were carried by one side of the football, right?
Yes.
And the other side of the football just did enough. And, I mean, come on, man.
But that's why the Chiefs aren't feared is what I'm saying, is that they aren't the dominant offense that we've seen for like 7 straight years. Their offense wasn't the thing that won them games until like 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter.
Agreed, but let me go down their point totals from last year. And it's pretty steady. 27, 26, 22, 17, 26. 28, 27, 30, then 16 against the Broncos, 21 in a loss, and then 30, 19, 19, 21, 27, 29, and then they were 15-2, obviously, because the Broncos game doesn't count.
Yeah.
They didn't even try in that game. So, I mean, they're pretty steady right there in the mid and mid-20s all over the place.
Do you guys know who led the league or led the division in points scored last year?
Who led the division in points scored?
It was the Broncos.
The Broncos did.
Okay.
They had a few defensive touchdowns. What was it, like 2 or 3 that they added to the board?
Yeah,
all I'm saying is their offense wasn't that far off last year to start with.
No, you're right. You're right. They can be the best. They can be.
Yeah.
They have to prove it.
That's all I'm getting at. That's all I'm saying. They potentially could have, in what is oddly, like not a very talented skill position division. Like they really aren't. The AFC West really doesn't have all that much as of now.
The Altitude Daily. The Morning Sprint.
Like, the parallels are crazy.
And the parallels are probably slightly intentional, Raj. That's my point. Is that as a head coach and a guy that's very involved in every single decision, you do go back to your greatest hits. I, as a coach, go back to my greatest hits. Hey, what did I do that? Gosh, I remember that. We had a bye week that year. We handled it really well. We played awesome coming off that bye. I'm going to go back and look at this schedule. I'm going to replicate that schedule. Or just say, hey, the whole year was awesome. You know what I learned, though? By doing that, a lot of times, for me, recreating the 2014 Boise State season where we led basically every offensive statistical category, where Jay Ajayi just ran roughshod over everybody and anybody, where we won a Fiesta Bowl, and we ended up having future NFL players like Brett Rippon, and I already mentioned Jay Ajayi and DeMarcus Lawrence, some really good players. When I tried to replicate that elsewhere, and it didn't work, it made you realize there's no two teams that are created the same.
You can't replicate the entire thing, but I don't think it is. I don't think it's something that you should hold against Sean Payton for finding little pieces.
There's a roadmap. There's a roadmap, and you want to continue to follow a similar roadmap.
And again, the parallels are here that it happens in the same position group. If the Broncos had already had the established captain of the mid or of the linebacking core and the captain of your defense in terms of how physical you want to play, and that's how we're talking about Hufanga and Greenlaw. If you already had those, your veteran additions would have come elsewhere. Your veteran additions would have come at wide receiver. Maybe you would have gone a little bit harder for a guy like Devontae Adams, right? He was available. Maybe you go harder for that player, but, well, you didn't necessarily have that need on this team. I see the parallels. The 2008 Saints team, it's like they didn't make the playoffs, man. They were 8-8. They need to win the final game of the season against Carolina that year. They lost. 8-8. Don't make the playoffs. 2009, they make it. They win it. Crazier things have happened than the Broncos losing 31-7 in the first round to Buffalo and then making it the next year when they look better. They do. It's that simple.
The Altitude Daily. Columbus, Hastings, and DMAC.
Jeff, Nik Bonitto was not out there after Sean said he would be today. We've had a pretty healthy debate on the show today about if there's anything going on there in terms of hold in or if he's just hurt or what's going on. I guess curious your thoughts. Have you heard any news about are they having conversations about a contract right now, or do you think that he's just got a sprained ankle?
Well, they've been having conversations, so I always think those are percolating on some level. In the big picture, I think Bonitto and his reps I think they're very intrigued to see where the bar will be on edge rushers with Micah Parsons, whatever happens to Micah Parsons. I think that's impacting some of it. It's hard for me to believe you would play in the preseason opener and participate in a joint practice and then suddenly decide you're not going to practice. And he was limping during the game, so I think this is purely injury-related. He was out at the beginning of practice in his jersey. He did not have pads on, but he was out with his jersey, and then they sent him into the trainer's room to get treatment, and, that was kind of his practice day. But he was out there for a little while and then went in after about 20 minutes. He went into the trainer's room to get treatment. So to my knowledge, this is an injury issue.
When you look at this schedule coming up, how much will these guys play, in your opinion, Saturday? Did the kind of lack of performance by the first team in week one assume that they're going to play a little more in week two, or does he kind of wait and decide to see how practice goes tomorrow?
I think there's some of that, Scotty. I think he has sort of told a few of us that, it may be less. I don't think he had any intention of leaving the offense and for 3 series, Saturday night, but he didn't like what he saw, so they kept on playing, until he finally decided I'm getting him out no matter what. So I think he would prefer, maybe one good drive and get him out. I think that's what he'd want in this one, and then I think that third preseason game will look like last year when they're basically trying to give some of the guys down the roster some more snaps to show what they can do.
Well, you got any deep thoughts about where we're at right now, man? What's your overall thoughts on where the team's at?
I think he'd like to see a little more from the offense, Tyler. Well, he would admit it publicly or not, and I think they'd like to see, Bo Nix settle down a little more and play a little better. I think he's pressing, in my opinion. So whether or not they're riding him really hard or, it's that particular time of camp when they're really grinding on you, I just think he looks to be pressing at times. And, I think they got to find a little rhythm for him, whether it's just some easy completions Saturday night or even Thursday. Get him some easy completions and loosen him up a little bit, and because he's short-armed some passes, and that often means you're sort of aiming, or they've been riding you about mistakes, or don't do this or don't do that. So I think you'd really like to see a nice, efficient, and very short, outing from the offense because they scored a touchdown.
The Altitude Daily, Kretman and Lindahl.
It was ramp up for joint practice day today down there at Dove Valley. And, Andy, as you described, a marked lack of intensity out there with practice today. It was teaching day, but almost basically a glorified walkthrough.
Well, it really was, and I'm not sure. I don't think it was intended to be that. They came out in shells. Tyler confirmed it was the shells, so we're using all the stuff, We're using the proper terminology. Look, man, it just was it's just been really interesting, and I don't even know what words to use to describe it. That's what's holding me up here, Nate. I just have not seen a lot of training camp days like this.
Yeah.
Normally, when I see stuff to give you the idea of the pace, and unfortunately, listeners aren't going to be able to. I like to try to, give descriptive words so you can imagine it in your head. It literally was walk through speed a lot. And this looked like something we would witness from the top of the hill in the spring where they have no pads on. They're wearing the helmets and the jerseys, and that's it.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stopping and teaching and so on and so forth. And it just was, granted there were a couple lively team periods, but, At one point, they're doing red zone, and I'm getting ready to. I was talking to Leggy and Nick Ferguson, just, guy stuff, whatever. Going to walk down and watch this thing. And so I keep watching the play, the practice, right? And I'm like, man, he's talking to him. All right, stay here, BS a little bit more. And for 5 minutes or so, I'm like, dude, are we going to do a goal line again? What are you doing down there?
Yeah.
And it got to the point where they ran 2 plays. Like, he runs another play. I start to walk to the other end of the field. He stops and brings him back up again. I never ended up walking down there because after another 5 minutes of talking, he just called it.
So Sean alluded to this yesterday. Last week, the rhythm was off because they had the joint practice with San Francisco on a Thursday, and then they played on Saturday. This week, and they had travel thrown in there as well last week. At least this week they didn't have that. So I think that yesterday's practice, which I didn't think was terribly intense either, at least had more intensity to it. By the way, Andy watched practice today. I was beholden to other commitments today.
I wish we had traded days. How about that?
But we'll both be back out there tomorrow to watch the Broncos and the Cardinals run into each other, and that's going to be an awful lot of fun. But Sean, he said it yesterday, and I think when you describe what today's practice looks like, it kind of is starting to make sense to me. I think that Sean Payton is frustrated by, and granted it was his own decision, but the decision to have 2 different weeks of joint practices because the rhythms of those weeks are so different, the ramp-ups are so different. And he said as much yesterday of just like, I don't know if I'd do this again.
You've been listening to the Altitude Daily. Catch us live weekdays on 92.5 FM, the Altitude Sports Radio app, twitch.tv/AltitudeSR, youtube.com @Altitude Sports Radio, and your favorite smart speaker. Say Altitude Sports Radio.